welcome back for episode number 173 of the weekly playback. I do suspect that this will be a longer episode because I'm going to be talking a lot about Iran. So firstly, I do still have a cough, like a sore throat and a lot of congestion, so apologies for that. And if I appear tired, it's because I am, because since Friday late night, I have not gotten too much sleep because I've just really been kind of glued to Instagram and Telegram, just looking at news about Iran, which of course I'll talk about later. So sleep has been sacrificed this weekend. So anyway, let's just get started. So in terms of games I played in the last week, I played a couple of games of Soda Jerk. I played a game of The Great Evening Banquet, which you can find a video for if you're interested in. And I played a game of Orloy, which is a review copy that I received from Devere and absolutely loved. And I just created a whole how to play video of that, which is quite long. It's like an hour long. Did not realize it would be that long when I was talking about it, but yeah, there we go. So absolutely enjoyed my play of that. Just so freaking good. So if you're interested in checking those out, you can check out those videos separately. But those are all the games that I played in the last week. So yeah, so let's move on. In terms of games I'm backing, the only game I'm still backing right now is Honey Pot. I did see that Ivy Studio released, has a campaign going on right now for an expansion to Fractured Sky, which, you know, typically I'm not interested in expansions, but that one looks like people are loving it, and they're saying that it's actually not adding rules, like a lot of rules that you need to learn to the game. So, you know, I'm not going to back it, but I hope that someday I'll be able to get a review copy of it so that I can play Fractured Sky with the base game and see how that changes things up, but I'm not backing it. So yeah, so currently the only thing I'm backing right now is Honey Pot, and aside from Orloy, which I received recently as a review copy from Devere, I haven't received anything else recently. So let's move on. So I forgot to mention this in last week's video, and I said I was going to, but then I totally forgot to talk about it. But there will be no Flag Con this year in either like the end of October or early November, like there was the last 2 years, which I'm really sad about. And the reason that there's not going to be a Flag Con this year is because the president, the founder of Flag Con, his son is graduating high school in June, not this. Is it this June? Yeah, this June. So he just really wants to be present for his son, or is it next June? I don't know. But he really wants to be present for his son as he's in his last year of high school, and, you know, be really present for his college, like admissions process and all of that, college visits, things like that. And he just feels that he doesn't have the time to dedicate to you know, planning a big convention. And last year's convention was so good. It was really, really nice. I was not on the planning committee last year. I was just on the founding committee and the committee the first year. But last year's convention was so awesome, and I was really looking forward to it this year. So I'm really sad it's not going to happen, but I understand because it is a really huge time commitment to plan something that big. So yeah, so that really, I'm bringing this up because you know, he had said that we would do the fundraiser for Rock Cats every year, the organization that helps me with my stray cats and other community cats, you know, with spaying them, neutering them, trying to find cats that are adoptable houses, you know, with their medical expenses and all of that. Like, it's, you know, very expensive. And there are so many stray cats in every community around the world. Like, everywhere, you know, whenever I travel, like for example, in Iraq, I saw God knows how many stray cats, and I wish I could have helped them all. There are stray cats everywhere, and you know, it's expensive, and I wanted to be able to do a fundraiser for them this year, and I still want to, but now I need to figure out another way to do that because there is no Flag Con. And as I mentioned, Millennium Games is not open to me doing some kind of a fundraiser event at an all-day games day, you know, which they have every other month, which is really unfortunate because I even offered to, you know, organize everything myself. And honestly, organizing a fundraiser is not that hard. Because, you know, I just reach out to publishers, get game donations, and then I just need the raffle tickets and just need kind of the logistics of, okay, you can buy a raffle ticket from this time to this time, and it's this much, and then I'll announce the winners, and you just need to be present to pick your prize. Like, super easy, right? I just need basically a space to sell tickets and a time to announce the winners. So I'll see if I can try try convincing them this year since there is no FlagCon, but I'm not really counting on it. So I just want to ask you, the viewers, if you have any suggestions of how I can try to raise money for FlagCon this year by giving away board games. Like, is there a way to still do that without being physically present somewhere? If any of you have any ideas, please let me know, because Rock Cats, when I told them that the organizer of the president of FlagCon would be happy to make it a yearly thing, they were so happy and so grateful, because again, we were able to raise $1,700 or a little bit more than that, I think, at the fundraiser that I did. So if I can help them out every year, I really want to. So if you have ideas, please leave them in the comments below or email me. I would greatly appreciate it. Yeah, so let's move on. So for Fiction Book Club, we've been reading Katabasis, but my reading time was destroyed this weekend because I became consumed with news about Iran. So unfortunately, I did not do my readings for this week. So for next time, if you could just read all the chapters that we said we were going to read. For next time, feel free to read ahead, of course, if you want to. I just probably don't think realistically I'll be able to add on more chapters since I didn't do the reading for this week. But I think we had said that we would read up to page 214. So that's what I'm going to do for next week. And hopefully, I won't be just on my phone, just consuming news nonstop. That prevents me from doing other things. So I will try to do my reading for next time. So again, apologies for that. But yeah, so hopefully we can talk about it in the comments in next week's video. Okay, so let's move on. So if you've been following along with our nonfiction book club, you know that we have been reading Iran, A Modern History by Abbas Amanat. And I am going to dedicate a whole portion of this video to talking about current events in Iran, which I will do next. But for now, I'm going to try to focus on this week's reading. But of course, there will be probably things sprinkled in about what's currently happening in Iran. So for this week, I finally did finish the chapter, which is the making of the Islamic Revolution, which is chapter 13. So last time I had left off on page 710. So I started my reading there for this week, which is Shedding Tears for the Island of Stability. And then I finished the chapter, which ends on page 742. I'll just, highlight some things that maybe I thought were interesting, but I think that the overall theme of this chapter is about how you see the Shah basically, he keeps on trying to bring in these other, prime ministers, these leaders who he thinks will, make the general population of Iran quiet down and stop trying to protest and try to get their rights, so he would make small, tiny concessions here and there, but in general, he was still a very, oppressive ruler, authoritarian. He was basically a dictator. Even though there was a prime minister, he still, at the end of the day was the ruler, and people were protesting against his government and against him for being the authoritarian ruler that he was. But the theme is that I saw that, he kept on trying to bring in these other prime ministers, very such a tumultuous, time period where you would have one minister and then he would resign and then another one, and he would try to convince someone else to come in and they would be like, no, I don't want the job. You know what I mean? So that's essentially what it was like. And all throughout that, as that is happening, you see the different factions within society kind of getting behind Ayatollah Khomeini. So this chapter talks about how that kind of happened and how, all these different groups of people were able to get behind one figure, which is Ayatollah Khomeini, even though they all weren't religious, they all weren't, necessarily wanting an Islamic government, but Ayatollah Khomeini ended up being the person that they ended up getting behind. So this chapter, really kind of focused on that a lot. Let me just see what I found interesting. I mean, I highlighted way too much probably. But yeah, so you saw in this chapter so many demonstrations happening against the Shah. People were very vocal against, there was a lot of vocal opposition against the Shah. They would call him a murderous dictator, a U.S. puppet, and a corrupt squanderer of the nation's wealth. Yeah. So this book says, in the eyes of the Carter administration, because President Carter was the president at that time, the Shah was too important an ally to be quickly abandoned or chastised merely on his human rights records and his representation and his repression at home, rather, even if disturbing reports of unrest in Iran and the student rally in Washington bluntly showcased his unpopularity. So, at this point, they're showing how there was a lot of protest within the United States from diaspora Iranians within the United States. So when the Shah and his wife, they came to the United States, as they're standing on the podium with President Carter, and President Carter's wife, I believe that was his wife, there were all these protests, and they actually, the book actually mentioned that they actually ended up having tears streaming down their face because of all the tear gas that started, getting into their eyes from all the police, using tear gas at the protesters. So that is, interesting. Let's see. It talks a little bit about a very short paragraph about what's happening in Pakistan at this time, because in Pakistan you see that the president, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he falls after a military coup that brings to power General Muhammad Ziaul Haq. And Muhammad Ziaul Haq is, considered kind of like this Islamic, or as the West likes to say, Islamist, which I consider to be a derogatory term for Muslim rulers who you have an Islamic government. So Islamist, didn't used to be a word, but now it is. People would consider him to be like an Islamist ruler. So it says that his takeover was the first symptom of a worrying shift toward Islamism that soon was to become a hallmark of Pakistani politics. And inevitably, the Shah had to act as a U.S. surrogate in stabilizing Pakistan. So again, we see more talks of oppression, attacks that Savak, the police of the Shah, is carrying out against the people. And these attacks, the book emphasizes again and again that it only solidified the forces of opposition. Every time you have this oppressive government attacking its people, and the people want different things maybe, but it's making them united against the Shah. So that's what's happening. Then we get to the section called Toward a Revolutionary Course. So there's like important dates that come up, there's anniversaries of like the Mossadegh coup, there's talk about this party, the Rastakhiz party, and the convention that they hosted, that had 10,000 strong from all over the country. So it's talking about that. So it says the Rastakhiz party. The convention declared all-embracing combat against colonialism, a euphemism in the Pahlavi parlance for the politicized Shia clergy and their alleged ties to the British in colonial times. Now this I thought was just really weird and interesting. Like, you are trying to call the Shia clergy colonialists, like that they are supporting colonialism. Like, that could not be farther from the truth. Like, it's what I equate to today being for example, colonialists, like for example in Israel, referring to themselves as the indigenous population and not acknowledging that they are in fact the colonialists, the colonizers. So I thought that was really interesting that, he's trying to refer to the Shia clergy as being tied to the British in colonial times, and trying to highlight that. So it says, a predictable and baseless ploy. It was rooted in the British authorities' distribution of the proceeds of the Awad endowment and similar Indian endowments among the Shia Mujtahids in Ottoman Iraq and later during the British Mandate. Yeah, so this, was just interesting, I guess. So then the next propaganda volley, blah, blah, blah. An article appeared in the Daily Etalat attacking Ayatollah Khomeini in spiteful terms. So that was the next propaganda thing that this section talks about. So it condemned the alliance of the red and the black reactionaries and denounced Khomeini and the Shia clerical leadership as turbaned servants of colonialism who had clung to a reactionary worldview and a corrupt culture. Like, I don't even understand what the Shah was thinking, because I'm just like, how do you expect this to work for you? Like, seriously, insanity. So, there's all these riots and stuff against the Shah and blah, blah, blah. So let's see. Yeah, and then, it's among these riots, as these riots are happening, it says the notion of Wilayat al-Faqih was beginning to place Khomeini far above his cohorts, not merely as a jurist, but also as a savior of the nation. So, the Shah is basically just digging his own grave at this point, and he doesn't realize it. So yeah. One thing that this chapter talks about, which is going to be very important to understanding what's happening in Iran today, because you're probably going to see it happening again, and you have seen it during the protests prior to this war beginning, is that, thing that is really important for Shia Muslims is the 40th day. So after someone dies, you have this, kind of ceremony, I guess I'll call it, on the 40th day after someone's death to commemorate, and you typically read special prayers. But in terms of protesting, that it resulted in a protest on the 40th day after people were killed. So, it kept on happening then, right? So if you have a protest, people are killed, then 40 days after that, you're going to have another protest to remember the people who were killed 40 days ago. And then more people are going to be killed at that protest. And then another 40 days after that, you're going to have yet another protest. And this is going to keep on happening again and again. So that's just something important to kind of keep in mind that is really, I would say, unique to Iran. Because it's a very integral part of Shia Islam, and especially when it comes to Muharram, which is extremely important for Shia Muslims. And again, the vast majority of Muslims, are Shia Muslim. There's a very small Sunni minority, and of course there are Baha'i people, there are Zoroastrians, and Jewish people who live in Iran as well. So the demands listed by demonstrators range from tangible grievances and realistic objectives such as salary rises, job benefits, and meeting of housing needs to political demands rooted in decades of discontent. These range from unconditional release of all political prisoners and end to press censorship and prosecution of corrupt officials to the more idealistic calls inspired by the left ending the plundering of Iran's natural resources, liberating the Iranian currency from the financial hegemony of the US dollar, and ending the so-called montage industries. I had no idea what montage industries were until I read this. So that was a reference to assembly plants manufacturing mostly Western consumer goods under license. Enterprises dismissed by armchair revolutionaries who probably had read too much Ali Ahmed, had read too much Ali Ahmed as somehow inauthentic and useless. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. So there were university rallies, which, they had calls for cries of victory to the people of Iran and an end to the exploitation of the masses. Those were audible. So it says the People's Mujahideen, the fastest growing political movement among youth, called for victory of the disinherited of the earth and the establishment of a classless Islamic society. So here you see that they, are wanting an Islamic society, and people are really starting to get behind Khomeini. So then we learn that, stuff happened during the month of Ramadan. And right now it's really important to understand that it is currently the month of Ramadan. So as there is this war going on in Iran, instigated by Israel and the United States, it is currently the month of Ramadan. And I'm going to talk about this in my next section of the video, but very, very important. And we will talk about why. So yeah, in Ramadan, there was fire set to cinemas, liquor stores, banks, government buildings, and Rastaka's headquarters. And in response, the Abu Zagar government declared martial law in the city. Blah 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 blah. There was there was an act of arson in the Rex Cinema, which resulted in 377 people killed. Now, apparently, at the time this happened, the protesters, the people who are trying to overthrow the government, blamed it on the Shah. However, it appears that it looks like it was the arson was consistent with a pattern of Islamic activists setting ablaze cinemas and other venues of supposed Western decadence for more than a decade. So then the author says that this showed an utter lack of moral scruples. So apparently, I think in the end, it was determined that it was, in fact, set by the protesters who were wanting that Islamic government. I wish I knew more about that because that is horrific, and I don't, I don't think, obviously, I would never condone such an act. And even if you're trying to overthrow a government to kill innocent people inside a cinema, that is very unfortunate. But in the end, it did not stop them from achieving victory, right? Because in the end, Khomeini did rise to power. So continuing on, then we see Abu Zagar resign. And again, I talked about how there's all these other people that the Shah then wants to become, the next prime minister. And the next person that he wants to become the leader is Sharif Imami. And the author again says that this proved to be another misstep. Sharif Imami was too closely associated with the Shah and the upper echelons of the Pahlavi elite, or is it echelons? I think that's how it's pronounced, to have any chance of withstanding the revolutionary storm that was sweeping the country. So he was from a well-known clerical family and a devout Muslim who held ties to clerical roles. His national reconciliation government comprised predictable Pahlavi officials who aimed to mend fences with the moderate clergy through persuasion and appeasement. And by doing so, he hoped to isolate Khomeini and his supporters. But again, you see that this fails, and so it's like I said, it seems to be the theme that they just keep on failing, and with the new governments that keep on coming in. So I'm just gonna skip over some stuff. Oh yeah, I guess I shouldn't skip over this, but there was a newly revised National Front. The newly revised National Front issued a 12-point declaration calling for the restoration of the Constitution, free press and free elections, and dissolution of Savak. So this says it emboldened the opposition and under popular pressure compelled by the Marjas of Qom to further support Khomeini and increasingly militant statements from Najaf and soon after from Paris. So Khomeini labeled the government measures as nothing short of hypocrisy. And again, there's rallies being held with hundreds of thousands of people. And these rallies were followed by a congregational prayer. So the author says that this displayed with an impressive show of discipline, public solidarity with Khomeini and his cohort. So again, more going on. Then there's, this event in Iran, Black Friday, which it came to be known as. Yeah, sorry, my throat is really sore. So yeah, there was a massacre and it left as many as 95 people dead and many wounded. So it says the emotional impact of these events was greater even than the loss of human lives. It further alienated the regime and set the revolution almost on a course of no return. So then you see eventually, because at the start, it seems like that the various clerics in different cities were not all behind Khomeini at the start, but eventually they do join him and and get behind him. So, the book talks a little bit about that. Let's see. Oh yeah, it says that the Iranian government pleaded with Saddam Hussein to remove Khomeini from Najaf, which he succeeded in doing. And obviously, if you know anything about Saddam Hussein, you would know why that is. Saddam Hussein was a Sunni, by the way. So for Saddam Hussein, Khomeini appeared more of a liability inside Iraq than as an asset against Iran. So for that reason, Saddam Hussein complied and kicked him out of Najaf. And at this point, Khomeini moves to France, which I think is very interesting. I wasn't alive during this time, but I think I would have liked to have been to just see that. I think that would have been kind of fun to see Khomeini sitting in Paris and having all these people come visit him in Paris, like a place like Paris. Like that just, I don't know, something about that I just kind of find funny. Let's see. So yeah, as we read more into this chapter, we see that so many people start visiting Khomeini in Paris, and they're all kind of impressed by him, the way he represents himself. A man of kind of few words, just a very like straight face, not much of a conversationalist, like the way he's described. So yeah, it's just interesting reading about, how different people would go and talk to him, and, the impressions that they would come back of Khomeini, with impressions of him that they would come back with. So yeah, I'm just gonna skip ahead. Again, I'll talk about this later when I talk about the war, but another thing, again, that's important to know about Iran and Shia Muslims is Muharram. And it says here, so it says the anti-corruption measures and the government's tone of appeasement only emboldened the opposition, which was succeeding in mobilizing new followers through the mosques and Muharram associations. I will talk about Muharram and why that is so important to Shias, and why it should be something that people should know about as they, learn about Iran and then what's happening. So more of the same, trying to appoint different prime ministers, blah, 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 searching for a viable premier, blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to kind of skip ahead. So it's more of the same thing, but the reoccurring theme is, again, that there are very different groups within Iran banding together because they want to get rid of the monarchy. That includes leftists, that includes students, that includes the religious people, that includes the lower classes. It's all these different groups that are, getting behind Khomeini because they want to get rid of the Shah. We get into learning about Sanjabi and his 3-clause declaration. Blah, blah, blah. So yeah, it says here, it gave the impression of solidarity between liberal nationalists and the Islamists without making too many concessions to the latter. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, the declaration simply reiterated National Front's position, long publicized in statements and speeches by Sanjabi and by others. It expressed the aspiration of all those who had long been critical of the Shah's dictatorial conduct, desiring a return to constitutional order. Yet there was an ominous ring to the very act of seeking an open alliance with Khomeini, for it showed the secular opposition's loss of momentum, a bitter reality that became even more evident when the Ayatollah insidiously received the signed declaration from Sanjabi and pushed it under the blanket he was sitting on without even putting his own signature on it. So at this point, the Shah was compelled to realize that his days on the throne were numbered. Then we get to the point in 1978 where Bakhtiyar accepts the premiership. Blah, blah, blah. Let's see. Again, more protests. You see thousands of placards carried by people in the rallies showing that they're in favor of Khomeini. And it says here at the bottom of page 729, Iranian youth were ready to accept the Imam of the revolution in place of the Pahlavi Shah and his excesses. So then, we get into as Khomeini returns to Iran. So I'm just going to skip ahead a few pages. And you start, we get to the section downfall of Pahlavi rule. So this part I found interesting because, again, I was not alive during this time, so I did not witness it. I wasn't born until many years later. But when this happens, once the Shah leaves and Khomeini returns, you see that, the military is still there. And people in the military are kind of like, what do we do, right? I mean, this is just a very oversimplification of what you will read in this chapter. But eventually you see that, the military, the people in the military, they turn on their commanders. You see that they start, there's even a photograph here showing a revolutionary who stole some weaponry from the military. So eventually, the military is done with, so I think that that's really interesting because, just thinking about revolutions and how revolutions happen, once the dictator left, the military is still there. So that's still an issue to be resolved, right? So just seeing how that kind of, happened here is just interesting, because I don't think, I've never lived through a revolution. Like, there's been no revolution in America, so and I'm American, so I'm nothing, I've not really lived through one, so I wouldn't have known how that happens. But it was interesting to learn about that. But eventually, Khomeini is considered to be victorious, right? So it says, the victory of the revolution on February 11th, 1979 came not with a smooth transfer of power as intended by the provisional government, but with riotous clamor and popular insurgency. It says Khomeini opted for the most radical of the choices before him and rapidly appropriated it as one of his own, keeping up with the momentum, often at the expense of the moderate wing of the revolution, kept him in favor not only with his rapidly radicalized clerical base, but also with the underprivileged multitudes who yearned for leadership. So you see at this point, Khomeini's taken over. He is now the new leader. And the next chapter is going to, of course, focus on Vilayat al-Faqih, which is actually what I focused on in grad school. So, that's what my thesis was Vilayat al-Faqih. So we'll be interested to see what the next chapter has to say about that. But I just want to focus on the last 2 pages because I think it's really important. So I'm just going to read a lot from it. So it says, was the revolution avoidable? So I'm just going to read some sentences that I highlighted. Was the revolution, or rather the Islamic revolution and the way it prevailed, avoidable? The short answer to this seemingly ahistorical question is a cautious no. It can be argued that in August 1978, the appointment of the Sharif Imami government removed the last chance for adopting an evolutionary rather than a revolutionary course. It says a quarter of a century of autocratic rule since 1953 had effectively demolished the political infrastructure on which a democratic regime and a sound civil society could be built. Instead of deafening propaganda campaigns glorifying the sunlight of the Aryans, if the Shah had permitted some measure of free speech and free press, an evolutionary process still would have been plausible. If Savak, again the police, had not engendered an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, of arrest and torture, of military courts, of repeatedly crushing student protests and completely suppressing any independent voice, there could have been a different political outcome. In the absence of genuine political institutions and the growth of a middle class devoid of political agency, the rise of a populist demi-prophet like Khomeini is understandable. The regime over the years had recklessly facilitated the growth of leftist extremism and clerical loyalties by virtually eliminating all moderate alternatives. The Qum clerical movement, in contrast, proved resilient, shrewd, and capable of building grassroots support. Over a longer historical span, the march towards a revolutionary upheaval arguably was set as early as 1953, when the last chance for a democratic process was lost or was taken away, depending on how one would look at it. Seminal to the causes of the 1979 revolution, even more than 1921 or 1953, were the developments of the 1960s, when land reform freed generations of land-bound villagers from rural Iran and brought them into cities. It says it became painfully clear that Islamic meant something more, a radical state with theocratic underpinnings, or more accurately, a hierarchy headed by an authoritarian guardian jurist and buttressed by an oligarchy with militant clergy at its core. So yeah, it says that it quickly developed weapons of intimidation and violence. They added to this concoction a generous dose of anti-Westernism and Islamist idealism. One can identify structural underpinnings that for centuries helped shape Shia Iran. Blah, blah, blah. The revolution can be fully understood only if we take into account dormant messianic traits in Iranian Shiism, which periodically revolted against the state and religious establishment. So yeah, so that is that chapter. And again, the next chapter, we are going to actually learn about, you know, the establishment of the government of Iran as Ayatollah Khomeini established it, which is Vilayat al-Faqih. So for next time, please do read chapter 14. I will endeavor to read all of it. How many pages is it? Let's see. So chapter 14 goes from page 743 to 772. So if you have been reading along, you will see how important it is to know history because you can learn so much from it. And unfortunately, as I will discuss, you know, so many people in this world refuse to read books and refuse to learn from history. But let me know what you thought of this chapter in the comments below, if you were able to get that far. And if you want to tie it to what's happening today, I would love to hear your thoughts. But again, I think it's pretty clear that when you have an authoritarian ruler like the Shah, who was extremely repressive, you know, just not open to other people's ideas, just very repressive, very, you know, throwing any kind of opposition in jail, torturing people, hoarding wealth, all of that. Like, where was I going with this? Yeah, obviously you're going to see people from all different kinds of backgrounds then kind of band together. And in this case, they banded behind Ayatollah Khomeini, and then an Islamic government was formed. So yeah, and again, would this have happened had the US and the British not overthrown Mossadegh? Yeah, so just interesting. I think it's very important for people to understand Iranian history, and they really need to if they're going to give any kind of commentary on what's happening today. So with that being said, let's move on to what's happening right now. So let's talk about what's currently happening in Iran. So on Friday night, it happened very late Friday night, according to Eastern Standard Time, when Iran was bombed by Israel and, the United States. And I happened to be awake at the time because I had just finished binging the current season of Bridgerton. And as I'm scrolling through Instagram, and then I see what's happened, which then caused me to stay up for another couple of hours. And so I ended up going to bed really late on Friday night because I just was very consumed by the news of what's happening in Iran, of course. So very upsetting, obviously. So I will say that, you know, what you see in social media on Instagram, for example, you know, common sense, it's, you know, dependent on an algorithm, right? So if you are someone who doesn't really consume news from people within the countries of which you are consuming that news about. So for example, when it came to the genocide, like I follow so many Palestinians on Instagram. I follow so many people who are anti-genocide, you know, who are anti-imperialist, you know, so because of that, like my feed is going to show me a lot of the kind of content that you will not see in Western media. Western media is very biased and it presents to you a certain viewpoint, and unless you go seek out the other viewpoint, you're not going to see it. So if you are only consuming Western media, which as we've discussed in many videos, and no, it's not anti-Semitic to say this, it is fact, Western media is controlled by Zionists. When you look at who is in charge of all the different media outlets, it's always a fucking Zionist. Like, this is simply fact. It is not anti-Semitic, it is fact. Who is in charge of these media outlets? It is Zionists. So the media that they are going to show you is very controlled. And we've talked about this numerous times when it came to talking about the genocide of the Palestinians. It's why you will see headlines like when a 5-year-old girl in Palestine is brutally killed by Israel, they refer to the 5-year-old girl as a woman. She was a 5-year-old girl who was shot more than 300 times. More than 300 times she was shot by Israeli soldiers. She was a little girl, but Western media referred to her as a woman, and the language that is used, again, in Western media is always passive when referring to crimes committed by Israel and the United States. And then it's always active when referring to crimes, atrocities that are committed by Muslims or brown people, right? So if you do not actively go out to try to consume media that is not biased, you are only going to get one viewpoint. And that viewpoint is essentially the status quo in the West, right? So I actively go out and try to find news that is unbiased, and I follow people who will present that news to me so that I can actually get accurate news and see what is actually happening. So when it comes to Iran, what is Western media going to show you? Western media is going to show you that, yes, the Iranian government is oppressive. Yes, the Iranian government kills its people. That is not disputed. I've never disputed the fact that the Iranian government is oppressive and, tries to do away with opposition. Like, that's not something I've ever argued against. The Iranian people, a lot of them want change? Do a lot of them want to see a different government? Of course they do, right? So never disputed that fact. However, what you will see from Western media is like, oh, everyone in Iran wanted the US and Israel to bomb Iran, to save them, to protect them. No, absolutely false. Now, if you look at media that is unbiased, you would have seen so many protests that were in favor, actually, I won't say in favor of the government, but they were in opposition of being bombed by the US and Israel. So those are two different things, right? You don't necessarily have to be in favor of your government to be in opposition of being bombed by imperial powers. So there were massive, massive protests in Iran leading up to this war that would have shown you all the Iranians who were protesting against the United States and against Israel. Now, let's get one thing clear. When we say that they are protesting against the United States and against Israel, when they say Margbar America or Margbar Israel, they are not saying kill all the Americans and kill all the Israelis. That's not what death to America means. That's not what death to Israel means. Death to Israel and death to America means like death to your imperial governments, the systems of oppression you have in place, which have oppressed so many brown people around the world. They are not calling for the actual deaths of civilians within the country. And if you had ever been to Iran, you would see how incredibly hospitable these people are. And, obviously my experience in Iran is going to be different than a white person's experience in Iran. But white people do go to Iran and they have been treated very hospitably because the Iranian people are not against Americans. They are against the fucking government. Like, that has to be something that you understand. And if it's not, then your level of comprehension is not going to, it's below anything that, you're not going to understand anything I'm about to say. So, if you don't understand that much, you really need to educate yourself on what the Iranian people believe in and who they are. And I'm going to talk more about the Iranian people and who they are in a little bit. So you need to go out and consume media that is not going to show you the status quo. The status quo of, that you're going to see in America is like, oh, all Iranians wanted to be bombed by the US. All Iranians wanted to be bombed by Israel. All Iranians wanted to be free. What the fuck does free Iran mean? So when people say free Iran, people like me, when we say free, Iran, that doesn't mean, so free Iran. First of all, I don't say free Iran the way I say free Palestine, because the way Westerners, Zionists in America say free Iran, what they mean when they say free Iran is bomb Iran and get rid of the government and let women wear miniskirts and just bomb them so that women can finally wear miniskirts again so that they can be free and liberated. Okay, so that's what they mean when they say free Iran. When people say free Palestine, what do we mean? When we say free Palestine, we mean free the indigenous people from occupation, from illegal occupation, which is illegal by international law, give them their homes back, allow them to live in a state that is not an apartheid state, allow them to live in a state as equal citizens. Like, that's what free Palestine means. So free Palestine and free Iran are not the same things. In fact, I've never said the words free Iran because I wouldn't, because free Iran is interpreted in such a different way than free Palestine. So free Iran has been, kind of co-opted by these people who want to just bomb Iran and bomb a brown country. And for what? So you need to go out and consume news that you don't typically consume. If you are someone who only watches Fox News, CNN, NBC, whatever, you're not getting accurate news. And you need to read books written by scholars. So I just want to go on a little rant about the fact that people just do not read books. And I came across a very interesting short video on TikTok that I had shared to my Instagram stories. And, if you're someone who's uneducated about Iran, you're not going to, I understand, like a lot of people don't want to, but, you could follow me on Instagram, or not even follow me, but look at my stories if you want to, because I post a lot of stuff that I come across that I want people to see and people to understand how things really are. But people, unfortunately, do not read. People, unfortunately, are really fucking uneducated. Now, am I a scholar on Iran? By no means am I a scholar, right? But I try to educate myself. I try not to just speak out of my own ass. Like, I try to have the facts, and I try to be someone who is educated and can talk in a manner that shows that she knows what she's talking about. And as previously mentioned many, many times, and I'm not saying this to try to be like arrogant, but I do, before going to law school, I did obtain a graduate degree in Middle Eastern Studies with a focus on Iran and Turkey. And I did, in fact, write a paper on Vilayat al-Faqih, a thesis. So I know what I'm talking about when it comes to Iran. Now, am I super up to date on that knowledge? No, like graduate school was quite some time ago. But that is why I read books, and that is why I'm currently reading this book to refresh my memory and, stay up to date on what's happening, because, you need to stay up to date. You need to read books written by scholars, and you need to learn from history to understand what is happening today so that the same mistakes are not repeated. So for those who, do love to provide their commentary on Iran, so many of them just want to, sweep under the rug that the British and the US overthrew a democratically elected leader. Now, if you read this book, you will realize that, yeah, he wasn't the perfect democratically elected leader. Was he perfect? No, no one is fucking perfect, right? So he wasn't like the ideal democratic leader, but he was a democratically elected leader, and he was, pushed aside, ousted by the United States and Israel, and their Shah was reinstated. And if you read this book, you will learn what an authoritarian dictator the Shah was, and how oppressive he was, and why people got behind Ayatollah Khomeini. People from all walks of life, different factions of people, got behind Ayatollah Khomeini. That is just the chapter we just finished. If you want to watch the last segment in which I talk about that, that's literally just the chapter we finished in this book. So fucking read some books. People who do not read books. So the video on TikTok I saw talked about how you should not argue or talk to people who don't read books. And I really should stop arguing with people who don't read books, because I do get into Instagram arguments and, Twitter arguments to a lesser degree with really stupid, uneducated people. The thing is, if you don't read books, why don't you read books? Why don't you read books? Who are the type of people who don't like to educate themselves? Is it people who just don't have time? I don't know. So I'm going to use Alex Radcliffe as an example. So Alex from Board Game Co., again, I dedicated a whole video to him and how he's a fucking Zionist, right? He's not going to be the focus of this video, but I just want to exemplify a point. So does Alex fucking read books? So back in 2023, we exchanged a few messages. Alex was like, oh yeah, for sure, I'm going to learn more about this. Did he fucking learn about it? Very doubtful. I doubt he ever picked up a single book in his entire life about Palestine, because if he had, he would know how much garbage comes out of his fucking mouth. So who are the types of people who don't like to read? The people who don't like to read are the people who know that when they're reading a book, they can't say something back to the author and be like, oh, actually, you're wrong and I'm right. So do you think when I'm reading this book that everything in this book, is aligning with my views? Like, there's going to be stuff in this book that, upsets me, that, that I didn't know that I'm like, oh, you know, I wish that weren't true. I wish, you know, that Ayatollah Khomeini, you know, didn't do this, or, you know, didn't behave like this. I wish that the people who were behind the Islamic Revolution didn't set a movie theater on fire that killed 300 some people. Like, there's gonna be things that I read that I don't like, right? As a devout practicing Shia Muslim. There's going to be things I don't like. You know, did I want an Islamic government in Iran? I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. You know, I'm not, you know, living in Iran, so it's really not my place to honestly even say. But I'll talk about that later as a Shia Muslim, you know, and stuff. So where was I going with this? So yeah, so who doesn't read books? People who just, you know, want their own worldview validated and don't want something that challenges them. So if you are one of those people who doesn't ever bother reading a fucking book, a history book, a book on, you know, sociology, a book on politics, a book on history, to learn about how the world is working and what's happened in this world, to fucking learn from it, and to fucking learn how imperialist powers just want to take control of the Middle East, which is very evident from all the military bases you can see around the Middle East and their positioning. It's all very fucking evident. Like, you have so much history at your fingertips that will show you what the intentions of Western imperial powers is when it comes to the Middle East and when it comes to Iran currently. Does the US actually fucking care about the Iranian people? Like, what is your answer to that? It should be fucking no. And if it's not no, then you're fucking stupid and you are fucking uneducated and you fucking need to read some books. The US does not care about the Iranian people. The US doesn't give a shit about any people in another country, okay? It does not do that because it only fucking cares about itself and its own interests, okay? So, should the US and Israel bomb Iran? No. So yes, was the government killing its own people? Yes. And, you know, that's not disputed that the Iranian government has killed its own people. What is disputed is the number of people it's killed in recent weeks. So in recent weeks, how many people were killed by the government? We know for a fact, because Israeli officials have admitted to sending in agents into Iran. We know that for a fucking fact. We know that Israel, for a fucking fact, wants a greater Israel. And a greater Israel includes parts of Iran. It includes parts of Lebanon. It includes Syria. It includes Jordan. Greater Israel. We've seen soldiers, Israeli soldiers, with patches on them that show greater Israel. So not Israel with the current borders, but greater Israel that includes land from these other countries. Like, if you don't fucking know what the end goal is here, then you need to fucking educate yourself. Like, it's not an insult. Like, I'm not, you know, telling someone to fucking educate themselves. Like, I'm not trying to insult you, but like, really, yeah, you are stupid. Okay, so maybe it is an insult, but like, you are stupid by choice if you're not reading books. You are choosing to remain stupid. You are choosing to remain uneducated and then giving your shitty takes on something which you know nothing about. Okay, so we know why Israel wants to bomb Iran, and we know why the US wants to bomb Iran, because the US, it does fucking everything that Israel wants it to do. Like, if that much has not become clear to you from the last, you know, 2.5 years of genocide or the entire existence of Israel, like, fucking read some books. Fucking read some books. Like, it's so fucking obvious. It's why you even have people who are right-wingers in the United States, you know, calling out Israel as the genocidal state that it is. Like, even right-wingers, people in the United States who actually believe in America first, are fed up with America just doing whatever the fuck Israel wants it to do. People in the United States, or even right-wingers, are even fed up with the fact that so many of our tax dollars go to fucking Israel. Like, our tax dollars fund Israeli, you know, healthcare, education, housing, all of that shit, their military. What the fuck does it do for us in America, where you have a severe housing shortage, you have a serious homelessness problem, you know, healthcare, don't even get me started on healthcare and how fucking expensive that is. Even with really good insurance, I had to pay a shit ton of money for the surgery I had back in August. Like, you know, you can even have good insurance and still have to pay a shit ton of money. Like, it's insanity. And just imagine what life would be like for you without health insurance. If you don't have health insurance, blame fucking Israel for that. Blame fucking Israel. Because they have free healthcare thanks to our tax dollars. If you can't afford somewhere to live, blame fucking Israel. Because they get free housing in Israel thanks to our tax dollars. So America does whatever the fuck Israel wants it to do, right? And for its own imperial interest, to get control of the region so that it can have control of its oil and all of that stuff, right? So do you think America is going to bomb Iran to free the Iranian people so that they can then have a government that they want? So let's analyze that, right? So let's see who they want as the next leader of Iran. Who do they want as the next leader of Iran? That would be Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son. Okay, so the previous Shah's son. And who is he? He is a fucking Zionist. Now, I've said that he's a fucking Zionist on Facebook, and I've said it on various other platforms and on Instagram, and stupid pro-Zionist Iranians will come back to me and be like, oh, he's not a Zionist. There's so much fucking evidence for it. Like, honestly, how much fucking evidence do you need? Is it not enough that he was seen, he was seen with Miriam, what's her name? Adelson, I think is her name, the largest donor to Trump, and she's a fucking Zionist. We've seen him at the Wailing Wall. We've seen him talk about how he's going to legitimize Israel once he becomes the Shah of Iran. Like, so much fucking proof is out there that he is a Zionist. This is not just name calling. Like, I can't tell you the number of times I have people say, oh, you just want to call everyone a fucking Zionist. No, I don't want to just call everyone a fucking Zionist. I call people who are Zionists, okay? It's not just calling anyone a Zionist. I'm not going to call anyone a Zionist, but if there's evidence that they are Zionist, I'm going to call them a fucking Zionist. And he is a fucking Zionist. There's a reason why in pro-Pahlavi protests in the United States, you will almost always see Israeli flags at these pro-Pahlavi protests. Do you think that the Iranian people in Iran want any Israeli involvement in their country? No. The people who are celebrating in Iran don't want Israeli involvement in their country. Do you see the Israeli flag being hoisted up at these little parties? Very minority, by the way, these very small celebrations, because they are the absolute minority in Iran right now who are celebrating the death of Khamenei, which I will talk about in a little bit. Do you see them hoisting up Israeli flags? No. They had just one goal in mind, and their goal in mind was to get rid of Khamenei and, get a new form of government. But they don't even want fucking Israel to become, to come into their country and take control of their government and then take their land and, make it a part of greater Israel. Like, you're really fucking stupid if you think that the Iranian people want that. And you're not looking at the news, which shows these mass demonstrations of hundreds of thousands of people who are protesting against Israel and against the United States. So no, the Iranian people did not want to be bombed by Israel, by the United States, but you have pro-Pahlavi idiots in America saying that this is for the best for Iran without thinking about the fucking consequences. And what are the fucking consequences? The consequences are really, really detrimental to the people of Iran. First of all, we've already seen that over 100 little girls have been killed when Israel and the United States bombed a school of little girls, okay? Why do you bomb a fucking school of girls? Like, what is the motive behind that? But we've already seen that happen. That is what happened on the very first night, okay? So, yeah. Do you think the Iranian people want that? Do you think they want their people killed? Do you think they want to mourn over their dead relatives? No. And if you are someone like Randy Flynn, the designer of Cascadia and Tabriz, who is so actively pushing for Reza Pahlavi, a Zionist, to become the next fucking ruler of Iran, then fucking go to Iran and die for your beliefs, because you wanted this fucking war. So you go to Iran and you die for your beliefs, because The Iranian people didn't want this. The Iranian people did not want to get bombed. After Khamenei, his death was announced, his killing, his assassination, after Khamenei's assassination was announced, what did we see? Did we see some people celebrating in Iran? Yes, but the vast majority of people are holding massive demonstrations against Israel and against the United States and mourning the death of Khamenei. Even people who had been imprisoned by Khamenei are mourning his death. Like, if you actually look at news from Iran, there are interviews of people who had been imprisoned by the current government in Iran. They're even mourning Khamenei's death, because Khamenei's death means that, his death is really such an important event in history, because he was a ruler who stood up against these imperial powers. There are very few Muslim nations left in the world who, with leaders who actually stand up to the imperial powers of Israel and the United States. That's why you see Iran bombing all the military bases of these Gulf Arab states. Like, do you think that they have an issue with the people of the United Arab Emirates? Like, do you think that they actually hate the people of the United Arab Emirates? No, they fucking hate the government because they've allowed a US military base on their soil. So Iran, in retaliation, did attack these various military bases in these Gulf states, which should never have fucking allowed these military bases in the first place. Like, you are fucking sellouts to your own people when you allow military bases of the United States on these, on your soil as a Muslim country. You are a fucking traitor to your own people. You are giving in to Zionists when you fucking do that, and their goals and their agenda. So fucking good for Iran for bombing these military bases, because it was in retaliation to being attacked first. Iran, in its entire history, has never once attacked another nation without being attacked first. Iran has 0 nuclear warheads. Iran signed the Nuclear Proliferation Treaty. Did Israel? No. Israel has approximately 90 nuclear warheads. And yet, the government of the United States, going against international law, going against treaties, still supports fucking Israel when it should not be doing that. It should not be doing that because Israel is not has not signed on to this nuclear proliferation treaty. So anti-proliferation. So hello, Iran has a right to defend itself. And it's so fucking stupid, but right after Israel attacked Iran, the government, the IDF, posted on its official Twitter account, Israel has a right to defend itself. Defend itself from what? Show us when you were attacked first that you then went ahead and bombed a school in Iran. Show us that, please. Didn't happen. It didn't fucking happen. So when you have people like Randy Flynn advocating for Iran to be bombed, seriously, fuck him, because he's fucking uneducated. Clearly, I know he lived in Iran when he was a child, but no, that doesn't fucking make you Iranian. It doesn't make you fucking even know what the Iranian people want. And he's been posting shit in his Instagram stories, which basically gives a green light for war, for the US and Israel to bomb Iran. So no, you can't have it both ways. You can't claim to be this liberal leftist who is anti-imperialism, anti-colonialism, when you are spewing this shit that is giving the green light to bomb a nation, and then posting other shit like this, it's unfortunate, but long live Reza Pahlavi, blah blah blah, just utter complete garbage. Randy Flynn is basically supporting imperialist powers to take over a nation and subjugate its people, because they're not going to give the people what they want. They're going to install another puppet leader in Iran who is going to be Reza Pahlavi, the Zionist dictator. That's what you're going to get. You're going to overthrow one autocratic government, the current government of Iran, for another autocratic government that gives you what you want, the American and the Israeli people what you want. It's not going to give the Iranian people what they fucking want. So if you knew anything about Iranian people, you would know that they're not in favor of this. And that's why we've seen massive demonstrations after the killing of Khamenei, mourning his death and saying death to America and death to Israel. And that includes thousands and thousands of people who were against their own government, but now are joining these demonstrations because they are anti-foreign interference in their nation. And if you read any fucking history books, you would see that change is possible within Iran. How is change possible within Iran? Well, first of all, lift the fucking sanctions. But they've never been lifted long enough for change to become possible in Iran. So anytime the sanctions were temporarily lifted, which they were for like a period of like, I don't know, but only certain things. So when sanctions are lifted temporarily, it's not all sanctions, by the way, it's just a couple things here and there, but it's not long enough for change really to happen in Iranian society. And if you look at a very basic principle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you will see that until people have their basic needs met, they don't even worry about government and safety provided by government. That is higher up. So they need the lower things met first, which is food and housing, in order to care about those other things, which then appear higher up in this pyramid. You cannot worry about your government unless you are getting your basic needs met. So you have to give the Iranian people enough time after lifting the sanctions for them to then fight internally, organically, for the change that they want, which is very, very possible. Like, how the fuck do you think that this current government of Iran came into place in the first place? It came into place because all these different factions banded together in order to get rid of the Shah, because they were sick of having an authoritarian dictator who was, imprisoning them, killing them, torturing them, hoarding the wealth, doing all of that shit. And who were the people who fled Iran when Khomeini came into power? It was the people who were benefiting from the system that was previously in place. So the diaspora Iranians that you see now in places like Tehran-Angeles, Los Angeles, those diaspora Iranians are children of the people who benefited from the Shah in Iran. They are not the people who, stayed in Iran and whose voices should be heard. They are the ones who are now doing these protests, waving flags of Israel because they're so fucking uneducated and don't know their own country's history. But I'm not even, it's not even their country. Let's not even call Iran their country, because they don't represent the Iranian people. These diaspora Iranians who are doing these protests in America and waving Israeli flags do not represent the majority viewpoint of Iranians in Iran. And again, if you bother to follow news that is from the people in Iran, you would see that. Like, I can, hopefully I'll have posted some screenshots or something of these massive demonstrations you will see in Iran mourning the death of Khamenei. Now, what has killing Khamenei actually achieved for the West? Absolutely nothing. And I'll tell you why, because you don't fucking understand Shias if you think that killing Khamenei is going to now just make Shias be like, oh no, like Khamenei's dead, what can we possibly do now? You don't fucking understand Shia Muslims if you think that killing Khamenei is a victory. It's not a fucking victory for the West, because Shias have a very revolutionary spirit. Practicing Shias who care about their faith, like, have as role models these individuals who died for their beliefs, like Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet. So Imam Hussein, whose martyrdom is commemorated every year by Shias around the world, he is like one of our biggest role models. He's the reason I wanted to go to Karbala in Iraq before I ever had any desire to even go on Hajj or Umrah, which is the lesser pilgrimage for Muslims. Like, that is how important he is to Shia Muslims, that for so many Shia Muslims, like, we have more of a greater pull to going to Karbala and going to his shrine in Karbala to pay our respects to him than we have to going to Hajj. even though Hajj is obligatory on Muslims. However, it's only obligatory on Muslims if you can afford it. And going on Hajj is extremely, extremely expensive. And I don't think, because the Saudi government has made it that way, and I hate the fucking Saudi government, but it's extremely expensive. And I don't think I will ever have the funds to go on Hajj, to be quite honest, unless I save up for a really long time. But saving up for me is just literally impossible. Yeah, as a single homeowner, it's like really impossible. So I had a desire to go to Karbala before I ever had any desire to go on Hajj. And I fulfilled that desire in December. Thank God. So who was Hussein? He was the Prophet's grandson. And he and a small band of, there were just a small group of 70 people, stood up to a tyrannical ruler, Yazid, and, died for their beliefs in very horrific ways. And we commemorate his martyrdom every year because he, to us, represents everything that we should strive to be. He was a devout Muslim. He had full faith in God. He knew when he knew he was going to die. He knew he was going to be killed. And he still stood up for his beliefs anyway. He still would not bow down to a tyrannical ruler. This is like one of the people we most admire as Shia Muslims. The other person being his father, Imam Ali. And this pendant that you might have seen me wear in several videos, it is a replica of the sword that Imam Ali killed, who I happen to be a descendant of. So the sword is called Zulfiqar. So that is what the name of the sword that Imam Ali carried, who was Hussein's father. So these are our role models. So these are the people we aspire to be like. We want to be able to die for our beliefs because there is no greater honor. So when you kill Khamenei in the month of Ramadan, the holiest month in the Islamic calendar, and Khamenei was like one of the only Muslim leaders who did not bow down to the Imperial West, who did not bow down to America or Israel, one of the others being Imran Khan, who is imprisoned in Pakistan. And if you have any common sense and if you've learned anything from what I'm saying, you will know why he's currently imprisoned in Pakistan. These are leaders who do not bow down to the Imperial West and stand up for their people and their beliefs. So when you kill someone like that in a Shia country in the month of Ramadan, what do you think that's going to do? Do you think that's all of a sudden going to make people be like, oh wow, Israel and America is saving us. They just killed a leader who stood up to you? Like, no, fucking no. Even people, again, who have been imprisoned by the current government are mourning the death of Khamenei. That's what you've done. You have galvanized people in Iran. Like, you have strengthened their convictions. You have made them even angrier than they were before. Like, if they weren't angry enough at the interference from the West, in 1953 and all these other years, and if you read this book, you'll see that even after 1953, the US was wondering, oh, can we make the same thing happen again? When, Khomeini was gaining supporters, they were wondering if they could then find someone else that they could prop up as the next premier in Iran and prevent Khomeini from coming to power. That's what these Western imperial powers always do. They do it for their own fucking benefit. They don't fucking care about the Iranian people. If they fucking cared about the Iranian people, they would have fucking lifted the sanctions. They would have fucking lifted the sanctions and let Iranian people live and helped the economy of Iran improve. But they didn't fucking do that. And you'll see from, reports that this war on Iran was started amidst talks in which Iran was again, agreeing to not creating nuclear weapons, blah, 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 like they always fucking do. Iran has always been had no nuclear weapons. And what we have seen for the past 30, God knows how many years, is Netanyahu saying Iran is 2 weeks away from a nuclear warhead. Iran is 2 weeks away from a nuclear warhead. Iran is 2 weeks away from a nuclear warhead. He's literally been saying this for 30 fucking years, if not more. Literally, you can see multiple newspapers and look at the dates on those newspapers. He's been fucking saying this for so many years to instigate a war against Iran, to get America to do its war against Iran. Israel wanted America to commit a war on its behalf. And now that's what we're fucking doing. That's what the US is fucking doing because the US is fucking stupid and is just controlled by Israel. And if you really truly are America first, you should be against Israel. You should be like, why are my tax dollars always supporting Israel and what they want? Why aren't my tax dollars being used for me, for fucking me, an American living in America? Like, you should be fucking angry. You should be so fucking angry. So yeah, you need to understand what Shias are, what they believe in, who they are, what they believe in, to understand what you've done when you killed Khamenei. Like, you did not, just eliminate a threat and now it's all great. Like, no, you've galvanized people. Just like when Israel kills Palestinians, that then raises a new generation of people who will want to become freedom fighters, who will want to then join Hamas because they witnessed as a little child their entire family massacred. As a child, they had to carry literal plastic bags filled with their parents' body parts, whatever body parts they could find of their parents in plastic bags. That is who you are galvanizing when you kill people. You are then creating a new generation of freedom fighters. You are creating a new generation that hates America and Israel more and more than the previous generation. That's what you're fucking doing. And then to do that to Shias, Shia Muslims, who already have a very revolutionary spirit, who already have the conviction that it would be such a fucking honor to die for their beliefs, to die defending their religion, to die defending their people who are the Shia Muslims. Like, yeah, you fucking have no clue who you're dealing with when you're dealing with Shia Muslims. Like, seriously, there's a reason why Iran was the greatest threat in Israel's eyes, because they are the country that will not bow down to them like all the Gulf Arab states have done. So you really need to understand and learn about Shias and their beliefs. And another thing about Shias is, so I'm not going to go into a huge lesson about the differences between Shias and Sunnis. At the end of the day, we're all Muslim. We all believe in one God. We all believe Prophet Muhammad was the last prophet. We all pray 5 times a day. We all, fast during Ramadan, unless you have a medical reason not to or some other exemption, so we all believe in the basic tenets of our faith. One of the main differences, though, is that Shias believe that their 12th Imam is currently in occultation and that he will return as the Messiah and fight against the Antichrist along with Jesus. Because, as I mentioned before, all Muslims believe that Jesus was not killed. All Muslims believe that Jesus is still alive to this day and that he is being protected by God and will one day return to fight the Antichrist along with the Messiah, who is the Mahdi. So for Shia Muslims, that is their 12th Imam, who they believe is an occultation. And devout Shias literally just want this world to fucking end, and they just really, truly just want to see a return of Imam Mahdi. Like, devout Shia Muslims know that this world is temporary. Like, they believe that this world is temporary and that it doesn't fucking matter. Like, when I pray, I literally pray for an end to this world all the fucking time. Like, I literally want this world to just fucking end already. Like, I don't fucking care. Yes, I enjoy life. Yes, I go out and I play board games, I travel, and I enjoy life while I'm still here, but every day I pray for this world to just fucking end, because I'm just so over it. I'm just so over all the suffering on this planet. And as a Muslim, I believe that this world is temporary and the afterlife is for eternity. And that is what we are striving for, is to be admitted to heaven and then, just have an afterlife of peace. But unfortunately, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon, but Shia Muslims literally pray for the end of the world. Like, that's something that we literally pray for. That's who you're dealing with when you're dealing with people in Iran. So if you think you can just, get rid of Khamenei and boom, problem solved, no, problem not fucking solved. You're dealing with people with a very revolutionary spirit. Yes, is the Iranian government oppressive currently? Yes, it is. I've said this repeatedly. I do not approve of them killing people, of them torturing people, of people who disagree with them. The problem with the government is, like any other government in the world, once people come into power, they become corrupt. Power fucking corrupts. Like, that is the issue here. It's the issue in every fucking government you see in the entire fucking world. Do you think that there's no oppression in the United States? Do you think our government doesn't harm people? If you do, you're fucking blind. hello, ICE. Like, you just need to look in your fucking backyard nowadays to see our current government and how it oppresses its people and kills its own people and prevents its own people from getting what it needs. It's every fucking government in this world. So tell me why we are so concerned with freeing a people in Iran when our own people in America are suffering. Like, use your own fucking resources to solve your problems in fucking America. Like, solve the issues here first before you worry about people elsewhere. Like, if you are so fucking brainwashed that you think America actually cares about other people having a democracy, you are fucking stupid. You are truly fucking stupid. And that is why Randy Flynn is a fucking moron who has been posting in support of Reza Pahlavi being installed as the new leader of Iran. Like, seriously, if you are anti-imperialist, you should be fucking boycotting Randy Flynn's games from now on, because here is a fucking moron who has been advocating for a Zionist dictator to be installed as the next puppet leader of Iran. Like, Randy, you don't fucking care about the Iranian people. You are so fucking uneducated if you think that's what the Iranian people want. That's what fucking diaspora Zionist Iranians in America want. People who fled Iran, children of people who fled Iran because they were the ones who were benefiting from the last Shah of Iran. You are fucking uneducated, Randy. Go back to Iran because you were a child when you were last there. Go to Iran right now and see what the people of Iran actually fucking want. The vast majority do not want Reza Pahlavi as a ruler. The vast majority just want to live in peace with basic rights, and that does not mean installing a new fucking puppet as their leader. So when you're advocating for Reza Pahlavi to be the new leader of Iran, seriously, just fuck you, Randy. You're just a fucking imperialist and a colonialist, if that's what you're fucking advocating for. And you don't fucking know what you're talking about. You don't know the Iranian people, and you don't fucking know what they want. So go consume actual media from Iran and educate your fucking self. Like, seriously, I am just beyond angry that people will view Randy as being some leftist who is anti-colonial and this and that and bullshit, like, when he's fucking not. He's given shit take after shit take after shit take about Iran, and it's disgusting. It's really fucking disgusting. You're not Iranian, Randy, so stop fucking speaking for Iranians when you don't know what the people actually want, and you're only mirroring what Zionist diaspora Iranians want, who don't fucking live in Iran and who think that freedom is just simply being able to wear a fucking mini skirt in Iran, okay? That's not fucking freedom. Is freedom bombing a school filled with little girls? Is that fucking freedom? Is that the kind of freedom you want for women in Iran? So when you say, oh, women, life, freedom, is that the kind of freedom you want for women in Iran by killing them, by killing little girls so that they can't even grow up to be women in Iran? Like, no, fuck that, no. We don't want to see anyone killed in Iran. But when you advocate for imperial powers to go in and bomb Iran, you're going to see a shit ton of bloodshed. If this war does not end, we are going to see thousands upon thousands of Iranians killed, and for what? And then you will have blood on your hands, and you will not get to say, oh, I didn't know, oh, I was mistaken, because history fucking shows you what's going to happen. Like, how many fucking history lessons do you need? How many times do we need America to go into a state like Libya, like Iraq, and show you what's fucking going to happen? Syria. Like, how many fucking times does it need to happen for you to understand what the US does when it goes to a Muslim country and fucks it up? Like, seriously, read some fucking history books. Like, I'm just so angry at the people in this industry like Randy. Thankfully, he's the only one. I mean, I've seen a couple of diaspora Iranians who've gotten into my DMs and, who I've gotten into it with about, because, they are fucking diaspora Iranians who think freedom just means like, oh, just being able to, live, where women can just wear whatever they want. Like, yeah, women should be able to wear whatever they want, but that's like, if you're willing to bomb an entire people to just be able to wear mini skirts, there is something seriously fucking wrong with you. Like, there is something wrong with you if you are willing to cause so much bloodshed. You can get it in other ways. Iranians have a very revolutionary spirit, and if you read history books, you will see that. But, you know, bombing Iran is not the fucking way to do it right now. So yeah. And I've said time and time again, I don't support the current government of Iran. Do I support the Iranian people? If the Iranian people, you know, get their basic needs met, they will then be able to form the type of government that they want, and hopefully they will be able to do that. Do I, you know, in history, looking back in history, I would have, if I had been alive during the time of the Islamic Revolution, as it came to be called, I would have been happy because the Shah was a brutal dictator, and Khomeini was promising these things to the people that, you know, everyone got behind at that time. Students got behind it. People from villages got behind it. People in cities got behind it. People in the bazaars got behind it, you know? People who were part of the former Tudeh party or whatever. Like, all these people got behind it. So it brought people together. So if I were alive at that time, I probably would have supported the Islamic Revolution. But would I support what it's become? No, because again, power corrupts people. And when you have people in positions of power, they are going to do things that keep them in that position and that allows them to then oppress people. So, you know, I would not mind an Islamic government if it allowed people the freedoms that Islam gives to them. In Islam, there is supposed to be no coercion. You're not allowed to force anyone to do anything in Islam. You're not allowed to force women to wear hijab. You're not allowed to force people, you know, you're not allowed to force conversion. You're not allowed to force people to, you know, be like, oh, you have to be Muslim. You have to allow people their religious freedoms. And as I've talked about before, the Ottoman Empire did that right. So the Ottoman Empire, when that was an empire, they had what was called the Millet system. So the Millet system allowed different religious groups to have their own courts. So the Jews had their own courts, the Christians had their own courts, the Muslims had their own courts. Now, do you know what happened during the Ottoman Empire was that these Muslim courts gave women more rights than the Jewish and Christian courts were giving women at that time. So women in Islam have the right to choose who they want to marry. Forced marriage is not an Islamic thing. That's a fucking cultural thing. That's an ignorant cultural practice. That is not true Islam. So you need to be able to distinguish what Islam actually says and then what the people are actually doing, claiming that it's Islamic when it's not, when it's actually cultural and it's fucking ignorance. So women have the right to choose who they want to marry. Their child marriage is not a thing in Islam. That is forbidden. So divorce is allowed in Islam. Inheritance, women have the right to inherit. Women have the right to education. Women have the right to go fucking anywhere they want. They don't need a fucking male companion to get in a car and go somewhere. Like, you need to educate yourself about what Islam actually allows and then see how the government, if it prevents that from happening, then it's actually not following Islam properly. So in Saudi Arabia, for example, when you see that women cannot go somewhere by themselves, that is un-Islamic. In Iran, women can go anywhere they want by themselves. That is not an issue in Iran. Women can go and drive wherever they want in their car by themselves. They don't need a male escort. Women can get divorced. Women have the right to inheritance. Women are more educated in Iran than men are. There is a higher enrollment of women in universities than men. And I'm hoping we will learn about that in this book because after Khomeini came into power, literacy rates increased. Infant birth mortality rates decreased, so there was vast improvements in Iranian life, which people supported in the beginning. And then, of course, like again, with any government, people become corrupt over time. So yeah, I do want to see the corruption removed, and I want to see a government that will be good for its people. But bombing Iran is not the way to do that, and you have no fucking right to interfere in another country's matters like that. You have no fucking right. Solve your own fucking problems first. As an American, I would rather America devote its fucking resources, our tax dollars, to solving problems in America first. As an American, I am terrified of the amount of student debt I have. Like, absolutely terrified. Like, I have over $300,000 of student debt. Like, that's terrifying. That's fucking terrifying. And if Trump does away with the public service loan forgiveness program, I'm absolutely fucked. Like, absolutely fucked. So yeah, as an American, I would prefer for our tax dollars to be, spent on actual Americans, not be used overseas fighting other terrorist rogue nations battles for them so that they can have their greater Israel. And that is what all this war is fucking about. And if you're too stupid to see that, then fucking read some books. Like, it's not our job to free other countries. Now, if we lived in a perfect world where America had a good democracy and where people in America were not being killed, if immigrants in America were not being killed, if Black people in America were not being killed, if trans people in America were not being killed, if Muslims in America were not being killed, like if we had an ideal society in America where everyone's basic needs were being met, where we had good health care, where people's housing needs were met, if America were this utopia where democracy actually worked, where we had a real democracy, where our voices were actually heard, and we were a nation who other nations could look up to, in that case, I might believe America and be like, yeah, when America wants to go and bomb another nation, maybe they actually really truly do want to help. But America is not that fucking nation. We are not that fucking nation. We are plagued with problems of our own. We don't have all the rights we deserve in this country. Free speech is being silenced in America. People are being imprisoned in America for their thoughts. The moment you start seeing thoughts being policed in a country, you are living in a fucking fascist country. America is a fucking fascist country. When people's thoughts are being policed, then you have a fucking problem. And we have no right to go into another country and tell them, oh yeah, let us free you. Let us help you. Like, no, just fuck no. So Randy, like, fuck you. No, the Iranian people don't want Reza Pahlavi as their next fucking ruler of Iran. So just fuck you. Stop propagating this utter bullshit and go fucking read some books and go talk to Iranians actually living in Iran, not diaspora Iranians who ran away from Iran when Khomeini came into power because they were benefiting from the oppression and the government that the Shah had in Iran. Like, seriously, just fucking common sense, people. Fucking common sense. Read some books. Like, this is not rocket science. This is literally not rocket science. This is just basic history that anyone can learn. Like, unbelievable. So yeah, so I am angry. I'm very, very angry. I'm super angry. And when I see people who are ignorant about Iran giving their shit takes, like, no, just shut the fuck up. Like, seriously, just shut the fuck up. So read some books. And then if you have educated, takes, if you actually want to have an educated conversation and you can actually, tell me what happened in Iranian history and you actually can, talk about stuff without all this propaganda speak from the West and Israel, then maybe we can talk, because otherwise I don't want to fucking talk to you, because otherwise you've just proven that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. So yeah, so if you actually are someone who is anti-imperialist and anti-colonialist, you should be on the side of the Iranian people in Iran, not these fucking diaspora Zionist Iranians who ran away from Iran after the Shah was, gone, because they were benefiting from that system. So yeah, I've gone on and on, but I hope that kind of makes clear what my views are. And, I've been told, people have said multiple times in this industry, oh, Sarah supports the government, Sarah supports oppression, blah, blah, blah. Do I look like someone who could live in Iran right now and be happy living in Iran right now? Like, no. Like, I would prefer a government that allows people to live freely and make their own decisions, be autonomous in how they choose to live. I don't wear hijab. I don't want to fucking wear hijab. But if I go to a Muslim country and everyone is wearing hijab, I will happily wear hijab and not complain about it because it's the custom of the country. Do I think it should be enforced on people though? Absolutely not. When you go to Iraq, is hijab enforced on people in Iraq? No. But when you go to religious cities, people wear hijab out of respect because of who's buried in those religious cities out of respect for those people. The society there just tends to be more religious. So you would stand out like a sore thumb if you were not wearing an abaya in Karbala, for example. You would fucking stand out like a sore thumb. So when I go to Karbala, I will happily wear an abaya. I'm not gonna fucking wear an abaya when I'm in Baghdad though, right? Because like I don't fucking have to. Women don't fucking have to wear hijab in Iraq. And that's the way I believe it should be in Iran as well. I believe it should be that way in Iran. I believe people should be able to make their own fucking decisions. I believe all minority religions should have the right to practice as Islam gives them. Islam gives minority religious groups the right to practice freely. So if Iran is suppressing that right, then Iran is not behaving according to Islam. So if the current government is suppressing various religious groups in Iran, then they are actually behaving un-Islamically. Like that is absolutely forbidden. Religious minorities have the right to practice their religions freely. That should include Baha'i people. I understand why Shias have, the Shia government might have an issue with Baha'ism, but that gives them no right to oppress Baha'i people. Like, just let them practice freely. Like, who gives a fuck if they don't believe as you do? Who gives a fuck if they believe in some prophet after Prophet Muhammad? Like, focus on yourself, focus on getting yourself into heaven based on your beliefs and your own actions. Like, literally, if I were the president of Iran, I fucking would not care. I would let everyone practice however they want to practice their religion freely, because I believe that that is very personal, and how you practice your religion is a personal thing, and it should not be imposed on other people. No one should be fucking oppressed. So, time and time again, I've seen people say in this industry, oh, Sarah, she's just like, this Islamist. She supports the Iranian government. She supports their oppression. No, I fucking do not. Like, I think I've made that abundantly clear. Like, I know that this is going to, kind of like present things in a very way that maybe it shouldn't be presented, but like, for example, like I've recently become very obsessed with the show Heated Rivalry, but because it's Ramadan, I'm not watching it. So I watched the show a total of 5 times. I kid you not. I watched the show a total of 5 times within a span of just a few weeks, because I became utterly obsessed with it. What is Heated Rivalry about? It's a show about 2 gay men falling in love from opposing hockey teams. Now, do you think that the current government of Iran would allow this show to be shown on TV? Absolutely not. So for people to think that like, oh, Sarah would be happy living in Iran with a government that, prevents people from doing certain things, like, no, I would not be happy with that. Like, I fucking love Heated Rivalry. Like, I would be so sad if I didn't get to watch that show. Out of respect for Ramadan, because there is a lot of like inappropriate explicit kind of stuff in the show. It does not feel right to me to watch something like that during the month of Ramadan, so I'm not watching it again. But I was so obsessed with this show, and to think that people think that someone like me supports a government that forces women to wear hijab, that, suppresses other religions. No, I don't support that. And it's un-Islamic. It's un-Islamic. Like, do I want to see a society with a lot of like, stuff in the society that I think is to the detriment of society though? No, I do not. So like, for example, I think, pornography industry, very detrimental to society as a whole. Is that something that if I were the president of Iran that I would, make a rule against? Absolutely. Like, I'm not going to lie about something like that. Like, no, I don't support industries like that. I'm absolutely 100% against industries like that, because I think that they are corrupting society, and I think that they are ruining society. So yeah, 100% against that. Like, so yeah, there are things that I'm for and there are things I'm against, but at the end of the day, I think people have a choice to live as they want to and practice as they want to. So yeah, so that's my take on Iran, and if you don't like it, well then I don't fucking care. Like, honestly, I don't fucking care. Like, if you're uneducated about what Iranians actually want, I don't really fucking care what you have to say about Iran then. Like, educate yourself, talk to some Iranians in Iran, and then let's chat. Okay, so that is my rant of the week. So let's move on. So this week's question of the week is another general question regarding mostly heavy games. I want to know, what is your preferred method of learning a heavy game? And I ask this not just for selfish reasons, as I do these how to play videos, which I know are like not like proper how to play videos. It's more like a how to play video you would watch, or it's basically me explaining a game how I would explain it to people if they were sitting at the table with me, right? But kind of. So I want to know how you prefer to learn heavier games. Like, do you when you're sitting with other people, when you're sitting at a table with other people and it's your first time going through the rule book as a group together to play this heavy game for the first time, how do you do it? So, in previous times, I guess I'm guilty of this, where I would just read the rule book and just kind of expect people to just be like, oh yeah, I get it now, right? Which is ironic because I can't learn that way. So I can't learn from someone just reading a rule book and me being like, oh wow, yeah, I totally just got all of that. And now I know how to play without having seen anything on the board, without having known what we're referring to. Yeah, I totally understand now. No, I actually cannot learn that way. But apparently that's what I was doing when I was reading rule books to people in a group, trying to, get them to play a heavy game with me, like Sweetlands. So when we sat down to play Orloy, this time I did read through the rule book, but I held it and I pointed to things on the board to try to, get them to understand what we were going to be doing. And I think that worked a little bit better, but if you know of a better way, let me know. And we all kind of did our homework before we came to play Orloy together. So we all did watch this one channel, what's that channel called? Meeple University. So they have I don't think that was a Sweet and Short video, but they had a how to play video for Orloy. So I watched that because it was pretty short, and I watched it on like 1.5 speed. So it was even shorter. So it was like a 13-minute video, which is crazy compared to my like hour-long video that I did talking about the game, but they were able to explain it in 13 minutes. But even then, from the video, didn't really understand. So when I explained the game in my video, I was trying to explain it in such a way that hopefully you would really understand what you're doing and what is going to result from what you're doing. But yeah, so I just want to know, what's your preferred method of learning games? How do you best learn a really heavy game? And I guess if you have comments on how I present my games and how I present games in my how to play video, if you watch the Orloy video, if you have any feedback, sure, I'll take it. That would be appreciated. I don't plan on changing too much because I don't go into these with notes planned ahead. I don't go into these with like a script. Like, it's just me just coming into it and being like, okay, I'm going to talk about this game now, and just saying what I think I need to say and hopefully getting everything out in one go. So that is my question of the week, and until next week, bye.